question from the other day. So we are talking about GIT carcinomas. Now let's look at gastric carcinoma. We've already gone through what is buccal carcinoma and esophageal carcinoma. Now we'll get into what is gastric carcinoma. So gastric carcinoma comprises of almost 90% of all gastric malignancies. Okay, carcinoma specifically causes 90% of all gastric cancers. So that is one of the leading causes of deaths due to cancer. Okay, uh, especially of carcinoma origin. Now, coming to etiology of the disease, the causes can be very varied in the sense that we do not cannot pinpoint the cause, but there are a few indicators in a way. So, one is H. pylori infection. So, people who generally have who have had H. pylori infection or who have recurrent infections with H. pylori, in both of them, it is found that they are at a higher risk of developing gastric carcinoma. Okay, then there is what we call dietary factors, specifically dietary factors. So those dietary factors will include ingestion of smoked foods. Smoked foods will be something like barbecued meat or barbecued food, that something which has been subjected to smoke as a means of cooking, or high intake of salt, or pickled vegetables, pickled raw vegetables especially. All of these will be contributing to causation of gastric carcinoma one way or the other. Then there are racial factors. Black people tend to be, there is higher incidence of gastric carcinoma in African Americans than their whiter counterparts. So there is that. Then genetic factors. Now, though there is a very small correlation, genetic factors do play a role, in the sense that around 4% of the patients, less than 4% of the patients of gastric cancer have a family member or some family history of the disease. Generally speaking, blood group A people slightly tend to be with vertical, have a higher chance of developing gastric carcinoma. For some reason in them, incidents have been found to be higher. Okay, coming into pathological changes in gastric carcinoma, changes as such, your gastric carcinoma will be located, the location of that carcinoma will be in your gastric canal. So if you see, it will be along your lesser curvature. Okay, if you take your stomach like this, and this is your lesser curvature and this is your greater curvature. Okay, your gastric canal will be somewhere around here. Okay, your carcinoma generally occurs there, but it can occur in other locations as well. Your pathological changes can be divided into two major categories. It can be either early gastric carcinoma or advanced gastric carcinoma. So early in the sense that it will not penetrate as much. It will be restricted to mucosa and submucosa. Now you have different layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, muscularis. Then you have your serosa. So only the top two layers tend to get affected in your early mucosa, early carcinoma. Sorry. So we have early carcinoma affects mucosa and submucosa. Uh, Submucosa. Alright. Generally, it does not penetrate deeper than this. It will become advanced if it does. Okay, you will see three different patterns of carcinoma, in the sense that you will see three different types of tumors in early carcinoma. Now, you will have either polyploid carcinoma. One second. So this will be a protrusion. I'll show you the images of them. Or it can be superficial, or it can be ulcerated. Okay, early gastric carcinoma generally tends to be one of these three, and it is typically a glandular adenocarcinoma. So it will start from your goblet cells and it will go up. In the sense that, let me show you one image once again. Yeah, if you can see this image, see, you will have different types of early gastric carcinoma. If it is the ulcerative carcinoma, a proper ulcer is formed in your mucosa and submucosa. If it is polyploid, polyploid is the same as fungating type. You will have a cauliflower like growth, that is fungating type, that type of tumor. Or you have superficial carcinoma. Superficial carcinoma is many here. I'll show you how superficial carcinoma looks. Second, I think I have an image. No, I don't. Your polyploid will also look like this. If you see another image, polyploid carcinoma looks like this. If you look closer, okay, it will be in your serosa, mucosa and submucosa, and it will grow out. It will be very friable. It can crumble very easily, and it will be like a cauliflower. So superficial कैसा दिखता? Let's suppose this is your. Let me draw it in yellow. Let's suppose this is your mucosa, and under that you have your submucosa, okay, and you have your muscularis layer and serosa underneath it. So let's suppose your serosa is like this, okay, for layers. Now superficial in the sense that you will have damage here, so you will have damage here, but it will be very superficial in the sense that let's suppose the red part represents the carcinoma. It will only be superficial. You will not have any protrusion as such. You will only have a tumor which is slightly elevated, and it will only be on the superficial surface of blood, vertical submucosa. Okay, mucosa gets damaged, and on submucosa you will be able to see one small tumor. So these are three types of tumors that you see in early carcinoma. Then coming to advanced gastric carcinoma, we have advanced gastric carcinoma is obviously something that will go even further. Okay, in early carcinoma we just saw that it is not going very deep. It is being restricted to mucosa and submucosa, whereas in advanced gastric carcinoma you generally see the tumor penetrating all the way up to your muscularis layer, sometimes even further than that. So it can go all the way up to your serosa, and it can perforate into your peritoneum as well. That can as well happen. Okay, so the deeper it is, the more advanced your carcinoma will be. Now generally you will see 5 different patterns. So I'll just write here, uh, may penetrate up to muscularis layer and beyond, or beyond. If it is reaching peritoneum, it is completely perforating through your stomach. Okay, it is creating a proper hole all the way up to your peritoneum. So you see 5 different types of advanced gastric carcinoma. The most common one will be ulcerative. So you have a proper ulcer like carcinoma, and this is the most common pattern. And that ulcer will be flat and infiltrating. So it will infiltrate directly all the way from your. So let's suppose this is your what do you call submucosa. This is mucosa, submucosa. One second. And suppose this is your mucosa, submucosa, muscularis layer, ऐसा लगाएंगे. Or let me put it even better like this. And let's suppose the tumor is going something like this. Ulceration is formed, and it is, let's suppose the black part represents an ulceration, and it is an ulcer like this which is going quite deep into your in the layers of your stomach. Okay, generally what happens is you will see a irregular necrotic base, and you will see raised margins. That is why I drew it like this. Here you will see slightly raised margins because of the edema. You will see a lot of necrosis going on as the deeper you go. Okay, here you will see a necrotic base. Now the second type of advanced carcinoma will be fungative. So the same type which we saw in polyploid, it will be exactly the same, but this time it will go what they call more deeper. It will be a cauliflower growth projecting into your lumen. It will become bigger as well. So in the same scenario, let's suppose a polyploid, it is growing like this. Okay, it will grow up like a cauliflower, and it can be several. I'm just drawing one of those polyploids here. It can be several such polyploided growth or several such fungative growths occurring around your stomach. Okay, that is fungating carcinoma. Then we have Skirris type carcinoma. So we have now Skirris carcinoma will be the tumor will be very thick and extensive. This is specifically because the tumor will, or the area where tumor is occurring, it will undergo desmoplasia. Desmoplasia is basically growth of fibrous connective tissue. So that what do you call, the tumor will become very thick, in the sense that, once again, I have an image for it, I think. Yeah, look at the fourth kind here. It's also called Linitus plastica, the one on the right. Okay, if you can see here, desmoplasia is occurring, wherein a lot of fibrin starts getting what you call deposited, and that area which is which is becoming a tumor, it will become much more thickened to an extent that it will decrease the lumen volume. So if we draw the same, it will literally look like this. So let's suppose this is your lesser curvature, right? And let's suppose it is like this. Now imagine if you are having a Skirris carcinoma here, okay, this location. So what will happen is this layer will become much more thicker, and if you can see the volume of your uh, so let's suppose this is the normal lining, the volume of your lumen here will significantly decrease. Now as the carcinoma progresses, this will go even further down. Okay, because more and more fibrin starts getting accumulated in that area, it will become very, very thick. Obviously your peristaltic movement will get affected to some extent, and your stomach will not be able to function normally. That occurs in Skirris carcinoma. Okay, the overall lumen of your stomach will start getting reduced as the carcinoma increases in stages. Then we have colloid or mucoid carcinoma. The next two types are not exactly as common, but they do occur sometimes. So we have colloid or mucoid carcinoma. Pretty much straightforward. This is a tumor like mass that is gelatinous in appearance. Okay, it will be vertical, sticky and liquidy in appearance. That type of tumor will occur, and the vertical. This is specifically because the secretion that is coming out of the tumor is mucus. It has large quantities of mucus. That is why it's called a mucoid carcinoma. Then you have ulcer cancer. Please do not get confused between ulcer cancer and ulcerative carcinoma. Ulcer cancer is something in which a carcinomatous tumor is developing from an ulcer. So someone already has a ulcer in their stomach, and from that ulcer, a cancer is growing or a tumor is growing. Okay. So initially we have let's suppose, oh dear, let's suppose someone already had a tumor like this, or someone had a what do you call this thing, ulcer like this, and a tumor is growing from here. Let's suppose tumor is like this, and the tumor is growing from this location, from or out of that particular ulcer, a tumor is growing. Ulcerative carcinoma is different, wherein the tumor itself is like an ulcer. Okay, yahan par in ulcer cancer, what is happening is, from that ulcer there is a growth which is tumor, whereas in ulcerative carcinoma the tumor itself is like an ulcer. Okay, the in ulcerative carcinoma you will have a tumor that is going in like this. Okay, in ulcer cancer it can be varying types, so it can start off with an ulcer, it can become polyploid, it can become Skirris, it can be fungative, any other type of carcinoma developing from an ulcer. Okay, that is ulcer cancer. Now coming to clinical features of gastric carcinoma, Obviously, because of all of these changes, all of these tumors that are coming in, your normal physiology of your stomach will severely get affected, to the extent that a patient will have severe abdominal pain and persistent abdominal pain. Okay, until and unless that tumor is removed or the cancer is treated, they will continuously have persistent abdominal pain. They might have it later on as well, if there is relapse or remission or something like that. And a gastric distension. If there is gastric distension, they will not be able to eat properly. Okay, there will be a lot of vomiting. If vomiting is occurring, they are not able to absorb any nutrients, whatever they eat is coming out, because of which they will have a weight loss and appetite loss as well. Weight and appetite loss. Okay, because of the continuous vomiting, and because vomiting is associated with nausea, that patient will not feel like eating at all, and whatever they do eat, that tends to be vomited out. All right, they will have anemia. Anemia generally occurs when these perforations go all the way to your. It can occur in several ways, but one common way is, let's suppose that ulcer is, or the tumor is perforating all the way through your layers and causing hemorrhage. Okay, it can lead to iron deficiency anemia. There'll be several complications of your gastric cancer. It can lead to hemorrhage, it can lead to obstruction, or it can lead to perforation. Sometimes it can lead to jaundice, some of which will contribute to these clinical features. Especially hemorrhage is the one that contributes to anemia. Anemia is generally associated with weakness. Okay, all of these clinical features will be pretty apparent with anyone who has gastric carcinoma. It might be confused with an ulcer. That is why it is harder to detect whether it is a ulcer or a ulcer cancer. You have to perform an what do you call, you have to perform an endoscopy and check manually. Okay, in only in that sense you'll be able to see whether or not these symptoms are occurring, whether because of an ulcer or because of a tumor or cancerous growth. So that is about gastric carcinoma. I hope you understood. Now coming to intestinal carcinoma. Intestinal carcinoma is of two major categories. It can occur either in the small intestine or large intestine. The most common type of small intestine carcinoma, intestine, small intestine carcinoma, is a carcinoid tumor. It is also called argentafinoma. Okay. Now, carcinoid tumor or argentafinoma is basically a tumor that secretes. It is an endocrine tumor. Okay, it mainly the type of endocrine tumor that you get is one that is secreting serotonin. So the tumor is endocrine in nature and secretes a lot of serotonin, because of which the overall serotonin levels in your body will increase. Now, serotonin, we just studied in pharmacology, has a very important role. It's a very important neurotransmitter in your central nervous system. As such, most of the serotonin in your body will be secreted in your gut, and some of it will be what do you call, transported to your brain. Okay, almost 90% of serotonin production all around your body occurs in your gut, 80 to 90%, and a small fraction of that goes to your brain. Now, in carcinoid tumor or argentafinoma, what happens is there is a tumor in a what do you call, in a endocrine type of tumor, in the sense that that tumor will start producing serotonin. The same like when we were discussing about peptic ulcer disease, I told you one particular type of cancer or something called Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, where you have a endocrine tumor that is secreting pepsin, because of which ulcer formation can get accelerated. The same way here you have a tumor that is secreting a lot of serotonin. By the way, what cells secrete serotonin in stomach? Which cells secrete serotonin in stomach? Okay, that will be your homework. Find out and tell me tomorrow. I'll ask any one of you randomly. Now, what happens in carcinoid tumor or argentafinoma is it is genetic. It is a very genetic term applied to tumors of any endocrine cells. So obviously, as I told you, it is an endocrine type of tumor, and based on the location of the tumor, it can be either midgut. So based on the location of the tumor, it can be midgut, wherein it is occurring in the terminal ileum and your appendix, or it can be a hindgut tumor. Okay, hindgut will be somewhere occurring in your hindgut carcinoid भी बोलते हैं लोगों को. Hindgut carcinoid occurring either in your rectum and colon. Then foregut carcinoid, which is occurring mainly in your stomach, your duodenum and esophagus. Okay, depending on where it is occurring, location of that particular tumor, it can be divided either into midgut, hindgut or foregut. Okay, depending on the location of your GIT, wherever you have this specific type of carcinoid tumor. These tumors pathologically, they are small button like. Okay, they'll generally be submucosal. Okay, they'll be slightly elevated, and they might be intact or they might be ulcerated on the mucosa, in the sense that the mucosa where they are occurring, it might be normal looking, as in a small bump might be seen, or it might be ulcerative, wherein a proper ulcer is going deep into the layers. Okay, but they are generally very small in size. What you see is these occur monotonous. So what you call single tumors occur as such at different locations. Either it is midgut, hindgut, or foregut, but single tumors generally occur very small, and they have uniform nuclei. But they have very poorly defined cell boundaries. So the cell boundary will not be neat. They will spill over into other cells. You will not be able to see the ends of that tumor clearly. So that is about small intestine carcinoma. Then we have large intestine carcinoma. Now, large intestine carcinoma में the most common type is colorectal carcinoma. Colorectal carcinoma. Okay. Obviously, this is cancer that is directly affecting your colon or your rectal area, and this comprises of almost 98% of all malignant tumors in large intestine. So most of the cancers that occur in your large intestine will be of colorectal origin, or they will be colorectal carcinoma. Causes of these carcinoma are they will include, or etiology, when we talk about etiology, this will include geographic location, in the sense that this tends to occur in places uh, which have, let's suppose they occur in developed countries. To be more blunt, in a sense, it will occur in affluent societies where something like America or Canada, somewhere like that. Okay, Europe, less in developing countries, more in developed countries. Okay, where there is no problem of food and what do you call, there's no scarcity of food and resources are plenty in those areas. Large intestine carcinoma is very common. Then there are a few dietary factors. Now, dietary factors will include mainly low intake of vegetable fiber. So fiber intake is very low fiber intake. Okay, and basically what happens is, whenever there is low fiber intake in a person, the stool bulk, or the bulk of the stool, whatever is the feces, that will be very low. In that sense, that tends to stay in your colon for a longer period of time, increasing the risk of colorectal cancer. Whenever someone is taking very low fiber diet, the amount of they generally tend to have constipation. Okay, in the sense that whenever they have constipation, your vertical feces tends to, obviously if somebody is having constipation, the feces is not vertical being defecated properly, because of which it stays in your large intestine for longer, increasing the risk for colorectal cancer. Then if someone is consuming large amounts of large one second consumption of large amounts of fatty food. Okay, something which has a lot of fat, that, and refined carbohydrates, especially packaged food. Okay, if someone consumes a lot of or large amounts of both fatty food and refined carbohydrates will be like extremely polished rice, or something like, let's suppose, pizza dough or bread, things like that. Those are refined carbohydrates. Okay, that increases the risk of colorectal cancer, because it will be harder to digest that. Then we have adenocarcinoma. Adenocarcinoma sequence बोलते हैं उसको. Adenocarcinoma sequence is basically, this is, how should I put it, they are already pre-existing adenomas, okay, in a patient who has what do you call, goblet cell carcinoma, or someone who has a problem in their mucus producing cell. In them there is a colonic cancer developing, that is adenocarcinoma sequence. So if someone already has a adenoma, they are at a higher risk of developing colorectal cancer. So that is that. Then there are some other conditions, specifically IBD. Now IBD is inflammatory bowel disease. IBD will have two different forms: ulcerative colitis or Crohn's. Specifically ulcerative colitis, patients who have ulcerative colitis, and patients who have, I'll just put UC, or ulcerative colitis, okay, IBD, and patients who already have diverticular diseases. Diverticuli are small pouchings in your intestine. We discussed about this earlier in some other conditions, where I told you that, let's suppose this is your intestine. Oh dear. Let's suppose this is your intestine. Diverticuli will appear like this. Small pouch-like structures that occur here, and enzymes and all can get trapped here. Sometimes carcinomas can occur here. That is what is happening here. If someone has ulcerative colitis, or someone has diverticular disease, they are generally at a higher risk of developing colorectal cancer. What you see in pathological changes wise in colorectal cancer is, depending on the side, whichever side of your large intestine is getting affected, you'll see different findings. In the sense that, if you see right sided growth, okay, if you see on the right side of your large intestine, if a tumor is occurring on the right side, it is generally cauliflower type. Okay, it will be a large cauliflower type, and it will be very soft. It can break down very easily, and it will project into the lumen. So just put it here. Pathological changes. If it is a right sided tumor, okay, occurring on the right side of your large intestine, it will be a large cauliflower type, very weak and very friable, meaning it can crumble very easily. And so I'll just put friable बोलते हैं उसको. It can crumble easily, that is called friable. It will be very soft, and this will generally protrude or project into your lumen. Now you can also understand that if it is projecting into lumen, as the tumor keeps on growing, the patient will have even more constipation, because it is physically creating a barrier in your large intestine, wherein feces cannot pass properly. Okay, so that is the right sided tumor. If it is a left sided growth, or if it is a left sided tumor, left colonic tumor, it will be a napkin ring type. In the sense that, once again I'll show you an image for both of them, easier for you to understand. See, this is a right sided versus a left sided tumor. If it is a right sided growth, it will be a fungating growth, wherein you have a cauliflower like projection, which is very friable. If it is a left sided growth, it will be like a napkin ring. Okay, if you go to hotels, you'll be able to see that there are a few napkins that have napkin rings, so that they don't move around and they don't fall down, and they don't fly away as well. So those napkin rings will make sure that what you call napkin is nice and tight. tightly packed. The same thing occurs here. Around your intestine, there'll be a annular or circumferentially, there'll be fibrous tissue, increased fibrous tissue, because of which there'll be a constriction which occurs in a ring shape. Okay, so all around. Now this is showing one particular area. It can occur in 2-3 areas altogether in your left side growth. So let's suppose it is showing here, right? It can occur here as well, like this, or it can occur here as well. Multiple of them can occur in the same side, depending on the progress of the carcinoma, depending on the extent to which the patient has been affected, based on the stage of that carcinoma. Okay, it can get severe. Sometimes you will see both right sided and left sided as well, so that is also possible. Specifically coming to clinical features, clinical features will be occult bleeding. So occult bleeding is bleeding that you do not know or you do not sense. Okay, it is a type of bleeding which is unknown to the patient. The patient cannot feel that bleeding. Okay, this will generally manifest either as what you call bloody stools. You'll be able to see blood in stools, or you'll be able to see iron deficiency anemia. So the patient will either have bloody stools or iron deficiency anemia, through which you can conclude that a patient of colorectal cancer, especially one which is having, or any colorectal cancer patient, they are having what you call occult bleeding as one symptom. And there will be change in bowel habits. Okay, they might be lower, they might be more. Generally in the left sided growth, what happens is bowel habits change because there is such a physical constriction. They generally tend to have severe constipation where they are not defecating properly at all. There will be loss of weight. Okay, if there is no defecation, the what tends to happen is there will be an inflammatory reaction, because of which cytokines are released. Cytokines do one side effect, or let's suppose cytokines have an effect on appetite, where they will tend to decrease appetite. So because of which weight will also fall, both loss in weight and appetite. Okay, because cytokines tend to create nausea. They will go in your brain and create, they'll trigger your CTZ, and they tend to create nausea, because of which the patient will not eat as well. Okay, as well as if they are not defecating, a lot of toxins tend to build up into their GIT. That in turn will start putting pressure on the patient, in the sense that they will not feel like eating, because of which they will have loss of appetite and weight loss. Now whenever they have loss of weight and loss of appetite, this will be followed by weakness, malaise. Okay, they'll not feel very well. Just put clinical features here. They'll have weakness, malaise. Some patients will also have anemia. As I told you, if patients are having occult bleeding, they tend to have anemia as well, because of especially iron deficiency type of anemia, because of the extensive blood loss. So this is about intestinal or colorectal carcinoma. Hope you understood. Tomorrow we'll start with hepatitis. Please make sure you find out what type of cell secretes serotonin. I'll ask you tomorrow. Right? Attendance ले लेंगे आज का. Did anyone get disconnected by any chance? I remember more people being here. I remember many people coming in and going out. Oh, okay. एक बार चेक करो फिर. अतुल, अंजलि, अनुषा, बाबेश्वर, उर्मिला, शांति, प्रतिमा, Uh, P. Mamta, Reena, and Pavani. I remember Pratima being here. I don't know about the others.
Sir, Vaishnavi.
Pratima, Vaishnavi. Okay. Okay. 12 people totally. 11. Okay. All right.